The East London Tavern tragedy has put a spotlight on underage drinking, with President Cyril Ramaphosa challenging parents and communities alike to confront the growing culture. However, this is not a new phenomenon. According to aware.org, drinking in South Africa starts as young as the age of 13. Let's get more on this now, and we speak to the organization's CEO, Carmen Mohapi, who speaks to us from Johannesburg. Carmen, good morning to you, and thank you very much for joining us for this important conversation. How did you come to that conclusion, that drinking, particularly among young people, starts from as young an age as 13?
So firstly, good morning, and thank you for having me. Good morning to the listeners. Obviously, there have been a number of studies that have been published around the use of alcohol and also the use of alcohol by youth. There's been a lot of work that aware.org has done in order to address the situation, and I think it's astounding to actually discover that youth as early as 13 years old, so we're talking about primary school children here, are experimenting with alcohol, and that's been based on a number of studies. The important factor, however, I think is understanding the drivers behind this behavior, because if we want to change the behavior, we actually need to react and change those drivers. And that's where we as a community and where we as aware.org come in to address those factors. If I may, one of the big factors actually is the lack of role modeling. We need role models in society, parents, communities. And there are many things that we could turn a blind eye to. You know, in 2018, aware.org launched a commercial actually showing a dad proudly giving his son his first taste of beer. And many of us have grown up as that being a norm, but it actually isn't a norm.
Yep.
Drinking at that age has an impact on a child's brain. It's not fully developed yet. And I think we need to start having really clear and honest conversations around the roles that we have to play as a society, as a community, to eradicate this behavior.
We're going to talk about role modeling, which you have pointed to just a few seconds ago. I want to take you back to the start. You heard me quoting the president there, who yesterday threw a challenge to parents to say, start having those uncomfortable conversations with your children now at this early age, so that incidents like that which occurred in East London do not happen again. Do you think parents are failing in this regard?
So firstly, I want to just send my sincere condolences to the family and friends of those who have lost their lives. What happened is an absolute tragedy. And yes, we as parents, and I include myself in that because I am a mother, need to look to ourselves and ask ourselves the tough questions. Are we having the difficult conversations with our children? Are we even acknowledging that there is a problem? And I'm saying that yes, there is a problem, and we as parents have a responsibility to tackle the difficult conversations, to talk to our kids about the possible social ills, and alcohol may be one of them, but there are many others. It is our responsibility as parents and as a community to actually have those conversations with our children so that we can help them blossom, help them flourish, help them grow. We need a strong, healthy generation in order to really see the best from this country.
Yeah. Carmen, then let's go to the area of role modeling. And you've made an example of a commercial where a father starts giving their child or their son their first taste of beer. I'm not sure what age that is supposed to be. In fact, whether it should be done. We know how alcohol has been sold through adverts. It's seen as almost a status symbol, if you like. Those kinds of adverts, I remember a time when I think it was cigarettes, including alcohol. There was a time when it was not allowed to be advertised. Has that changed? If it is continuing, should we not put a stop to it?
So we've got very clear rules in our code of communication around how we manage alcohol, making sure that the communication we put out there does not have underage appeal, ensuring that the commercials that we put out there are not published or publicized at a time when kids are likely to be exposed to them. They should be exposed to people who are over the legal drinking age. And further to that, we have very clear rules related to licensing requirements that alcohol cannot, must not, and should not be sold to anyone under the age of 18. But I want to go back to the role of caregivers and parents. Equally, caregivers and parents have been known to send their kids down the road to buy alcohol on their behalf. That is not okay. That's not acceptable. And that should never, ever be allowed. There are these social norms that have been happening for years that we've seen to have just continued. And I think it's time to take a really hard look in the mirror. Really unfortunate that we've had to come into a situation like this to start having that conversation. But it's important that we eradicate it. Change starts with us. And to the President's letter, actually, it takes a village. We all need to change that behavior if we want our children to have a brighter future.
You mentioned the President. You mentioned that it takes a village to bring up a child. I mean, that's a famous saying in our country. And you remind me of a conversation I had with the MEC on the back of this tragedy, the MEC in the Eastern Cape, who said that it was the municipality which extended the trading hours of liquor outlets there. And I'm latching on this very point you're making, that it takes a village to bring up a child, because in the same breath, while the municipality on the one hand is increasing the trading hours to 4 a.m., that outlet is also placed slap bang in the middle of a residential community. Why is that even allowed?
I think we need to, obviously we've got the Liquor Amendment Bill that is being discussed, and that process needs to run its course to ensure that actually we have outlets that are placed in areas that are appropriate for adult consumption, because those places are intended for adult consumption. Even if those places were in those environments, underage children should never be allowed, and the measures taken to avoid that should really be strict and adhered to. To have a 13-year-old child in a tavern is just unacceptable and should not be managed. And from my understanding, measures and steps have been taken against that outlet to make sure that that doesn't happen again. Licensing requirements comes with responsibility, and that responsibility has to be adhered to.
All right. So, very clear-cut questions, Carmen. Liquor outlets, how far removed should they be from residential areas? I'm now talking directly to licensing rules, if you like. So, where should they be positioned? How far should they be from communities? And perhaps another simple question, some may assume that no, we know what the legal age is for you to start drinking. Remind us what that age is.
Well, the legal drinking age is 18, so no one under the age of 18 should be allowed to buy alcohol, whether that's from a retail store or from a tavern, etc. No one under the age of 18 should be sold alcohol. And anybody who has a license and sells to anyone under the age of 18 should, in my view, actually have their license revoked. That is the responsibility of the liquor boards. And the liquor boards are responsible for making sure that the enforcement of the laws that we have in place, and these laws are intended to ensure that alcohol is used in a responsible manner, is actually enforced. And we have to go back to that. We can have as many laws as we like, but if it's not enforced, it's going to make absolutely no difference. The notion of how far the outlet should be, there's a lot of discussion happening about that at the moment, and those discussions continue. I'm not in a position right now to really speak to exactly what that number should be, but I know that those discussions are being had, and I think that they are important discussions to be had.
CEO of the organization aware.org. Carmen Mohapi, thank you very much for your time.